Hello, my name is Riley Brady, and today we're going to be talking about age, gender, and sport. So this is Miss Heron. Tell me a little bit about your sport.
Hey, well, I participate in the sport of equestrian show jumping, and we do that throughout the southeast and kind of the eastern half of the country. So we travel a bit, but it's a very diverse sport. So we do have a lot of Canadians that come here. We have a lot of um, Europeans that come here. So we get to experience some different cultures, which is a lot of fun.
That's good. All right, so tell me a little bit more about your background in it, or if your age or gender has had an effect on your experience there.
Well, absolutely. I turned professional when I was 16, so I've been doing this for
Wow.
quite a while. Um, and of course, when you're 16, you don't know what you don't know because you're way too young. But, but I've been very, very blessed in that the sport that I participate in is one that you can continue to do as you get older. They have different um, divisions and different places where people can compete as long as their bodies allow them to, and and I've been very blessed that way. So I have gotten to see a large panorama of time and how that affects both sport and your individual participation in a sport over time. So we are not, like the gymnasts have such a short time that they can do it, and they're so young. I mean, talk about pressure. But we do get to grow up a little bit, so that's very helpful. Um, so anyway, yeah, I do have quite a bit of time in that. Um, I would say, when you're young, you know that you love part of it. You don't also know that the parts that you don't love are going to be equally important and sometimes more important. It's very easy. It's riding the horses is the easy part. Learning when you're young to manage, I remember being 19 and being incredibly nervous and just kind of overwhelmed with the idea that I was making a plan for 45-year-old clients, spending their money, telling them what to do. And kind of, I had an idea what they should do with the horses. I didn't have an idea how to present it. I didn't have an idea of what that looked like in the course of their lives, in the spectrum of how does this fit into the rest of your life. So those were definitely lessons that you learned over time, and a little experience, and definitely making some mistakes. So even if you had a clear vision of what should happen with the horse, having a clear vision of what the client needed you to do was a little more difficult, especially when the client was twice your age.
Yeah.
That was a little intimidating sometimes, walking into those meetings to say, this is how I think we should handle it, or this is the horse I think you should buy. When you're talking about them outlaying a fairly large sum of cash, even if they have it to spend and they're okay with what you're saying, it's a little intimidating looking at somebody and just being the kid. It's a little easier in the ring when you are a little more comfortable with the exercises, because our sport has we have a lot of similarities to basketball, actually, where you run through drills. I mean, I use layups as one of the ways to explain to people that daily our bodies are different. If you think about it, that a professional basketball player, as much as they practice, still misses their free throws. I mean, it's a free throw. It's always the same, and yet they miss them. So the only thing that's really different, besides the pressure of competition, but it's what's different in each of those moments is how their body works. So they're really, it's the same basketball, same height goal, same distance away from the goal. Nobody's in front of you blocking your vision. There's a lot that you can practice, and then our bodies still are different day to day. And so, I use that illustration as a way to explain to riders why they might ride brilliantly one day and come out the next day and feel like they just can't get it the way they did the day before. So yeah, I mean, definitely age makes you more comfortable with what you know, and for sure you get to increase your learning. Age also makes you really aware of how much you don't control. When you're a kid and you're young in the sport and you're 20 and you can do all these things and you're having success, and I've been very blessed over the course of my business in that I was able to be self-employed way too young, and it worked. And I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but it worked, and God blessed me enough to let me continue and learn what I didn't know. As you get older, you definitely learn to become more comfortable with the parts you're bad at. I used to get really intimidated when I had to make a phone call to those 20, 30-year-old, much older clients and tell them something was wrong with their horse, or that something was not working out with their schedule. And I would procrastinate and put those phone calls off, and finally I just had to get to the point where I realized that if you will attack the part of your day that's uncomfortable, the rest will be okay. But it took a while to learn that. That was, to get the part out of the way that's the least comfortable. Start there. I mean, obviously don't call them at 5 o'clock in the morning, but and learning to interpret what your clients really, how to look at their life and figure out what obviously you're going to discuss their goals, but how to make that work for them, to look at the time they have available, to look at their budget and their the ability to travel or not travel, and would they prefer to travel, would they prefer not to, do they, what are things are pulling at them that you need to help their entertainment fit around. So that was, when you're working in entertainment, you have to learn to be a little more flexible, because especially with like my doctors, they're saving lives one minute and then they're riding their horse so that they can rest their brain, and you kind of have to help them make that work, and know when to, and some of them have been super. I mean, I've certainly had doctors get on and go, do not set anything difficult today because I'm in the middle of a very difficult patient situation and I'm trying to save a life and I'm very distracted today. And I certainly have a lot of respect for that. So that's been definitely one thing. As I've gotten older, and now I'm at 58, I am definitely one of the older people participating at the level that I participate, which I've been very blessed to have horses that could participate at a high level. So I, definitely the age group thins out a little bit as you get older. And I have to say it's the kids coming up, a lot of the younger people are they're just so sweet and they're so encouraging. And, I fall and they come and check on you after, or they're really kind of glad that you're there. And I'm glad that they're there. I mean, I do think you get to bring a Christian perspective to it because we are competitive people. Competition so often lends itself to criticism, or when, we all want to win. We all want to win every day. We have a good day when we win. We don't have not quite such a good day when we don't win. But learning to be more even and truly encouraging of them and really want them to do well, they definitely, the younger generation definitely responds to that, and they like to see you be around. They want you there. they're happy that you're competing. So I do sometimes have this little cheering section that they're just so cute and sweet, and you do well, and they're just so happy for you, um, and and like I say, you have a bad day and they're checking on you, make sure you're okay. So that's been one of the bonuses of getting older, as there are less of us at my age trying to do this. So that's been a lot of fun. But I do think it's been definitely a humongous education in life to get to do a sport over so many decades, not just years, but decades. I mean, and learn the lessons that you get to learn. And of course, the ones that God teaches you. Mm-hmm. You are not in control of so very, very much. You might be a really good teacher. You might set the exercises really well. You might have your explanations all worked out and be able to explain them to the client and very easily tell them what you want them to accomplish that day. But you really do not control whether or not the wind blows hard enough to knock a branch out of a tree and scare the horse and upset your entire day. Yeah. So you really do learn to become more grateful for what does work out, and feel more blessed in that time and time again it does work. And we're just not guaranteed of that. And I've been extremely blessed that way.
So one last question, what would you say, you touched on the teens that you work with now or compete against now, what is the difference between when you were a teen and the teens now?
Social media pressure. There was no social media when I was a teen. So you went to the horse show, you were with your people, you were with your friends, you were going to go back to the barn afterwards, your immediate group, kind of your team. But what happened in the ring was really more viewed, and there were videos and things, but it was more viewed by the people that were there, by the people in real time experiencing it with you, and often participating with you in various ways. Now, of course, there's social media, and of course, everyone wants to promote their business, to put their best wins forward. So everybody posts their win picture, and all the businesses are trying to promote how many winners they had on a given day, how many, so there are lots and lots of win pictures out there. And for the kid that's maybe having more difficulty with a new horse, they feel that pressure. They feel like, and the parents start to expect, like, my kid needs to be in the win picture too. My kid needs to be part of what's going on as well. And I think just not having the time to develop sometimes without the pressure of the win picture, like trying to generate that. So then do you really make the best plan to move forward, or do you bounce around with needing to try to move forward sometimes, but then needing a X amount of win pictures to keep everybody happy and keep kids from feeling like they're not good enough? So I think there's a lot more pressure that is dealt with that way. And it just goes out to such a bigger audience. So the kids feel like the kids feel so much more on stage. And that's good from learning to handle the pressure so that they're not so disrupted when there is more pressure. Mm-hmm. But it's also sometimes just in the course of development, both emotionally for teenagers, because teenagers are going to go through so many stages, and one minute they'll be freaking out, and the next minute they've grown up a little bit and they're totally okay with something. But their emotional roller coaster of their growing processes, and the emotional roller coaster of trying to learn new things within a sport, or move up divisions and try something new, or do you handle the pressure of trying something new, or does everybody laugh at you because everybody gets on social media and goes, we knew you couldn't do it because you made a mistake? Well, of course they made a mistake. They don't know how to do this yet. So I just feel like that's a pressure. There are a lot more shows in a row than there used to be. So there used to be more time to kind of play your game and then go home and work on what didn't go well.
Right.
This time, a lot of times you play your game several weeks in a row, and there's just not time, and the horses have to have a break as well. You can't just drill them constantly.
Yeah.
So it becomes, sometimes you find kids caught up in a series of pressures because there's a plan to show so many shows without being able to, like, they're encountering a problem, but they don't have a way to unravel it and work it out. So they get a little frantic over it.
Gotcha.
So that I think contributes sometimes
Gotcha.
to making it a little harder. But I think it's harder. I mean, I think it's much harder now than it was in terms of the pressure. The sport is very similar, but the pressure is definitely more intense for the teenagers now.
Gotcha. Thank you for enlightening me on that. Thank you for
Yep.
letting me interview you.
Absolutely.